Welcome to the Mayor Show. As usual, I think we have one of the most important people in Bensalem in the state of Pennsylvania right now. Homegrown, been here in Bensalem all his life, and certainly has dedicated himself from way back in school board days to now as a senator, as a senior senator, Senator Tommy Tomlinson. Tommy?
Senior's right. How about that?
Senator, yes. Well, you've been there a long time, Senator. How many years you been senator now?
Well, I'm the second in seniority, and I've been in the Senate since 1994.
Well, there you go.
I was in the House in 1990, as you remember, and then
Oh,
94
sure
I went in the Senate, and Gene came into the House in 94 when I went on into the Senate. So only Senator Greenleaf has more seniority than I do.
Well, I didn't mean by age. I was talking about seniority by the years in the Senate. Of course, you understand that.
I understand that.
And you are much younger than me, so we'll put it that way.
That's true.
That is true. Anyway, we're here today, and certainly a lot of topics to talk about, a lot going on in the state right now, and a lot not going on in the state right now. And we maybe open up with the budget, which is one of the things that's going on and hasn't been settled yet. And I think it's almost a month now, maybe a little over a month, right?
Over June 30th is our deadline, Mayor, and June 30th we're supposed to have a budget. And our fiscal year is not like everybody else's, January to December, December to January. It's June and July, so we are way over our budget. It's not a good situation. We've done this in the past under Rendell. Rendell used it as a leverage in many instances to try to get more out of us. I think this governor's trying to do the same thing, leverage the legislature for some issues that really aren't budget related. And I think the biggest holdup with this governor is that he wants to swap out property taxes for a sales tax. And that's a huge tax increase for the people. It doesn't limit the property taxes, but it raises the sales taxes. It lowers them temporarily, but you'll have a permanent sales tax increase. And I spoke to the governor directly about this, and I think it's an issue that's too big. He's not going to be able to get it through this legislature, and it's complicating us actually getting budget items done. Educational money, Plan Con money for our school districts to reimburse them for construction.
Let me interrupt you for a second, Senator. I want to go back to education, and I remember when Governor Rendell was there was a lot of one-time money to education that went into there, and everybody thought after that they could cut on education. And I just clarify that for us.
Yeah, Mayor, you're right. We never really cut money out. We had stimulus money, federal stimulus money from the federal government to go into education. And our arguments were, be careful how you spend this money. Do not put this temporary money, one-time money, into a budget that has reoccurring expenses. In other words, if you're a school district, do not put this money into the salary base. Do not put it in your general fund. If you want to fix a roof, if you need to do construction projects, if you need to do something that is going to be a permanent fixture and then not roll into your budget next year. So what happened is when that money ran out, of course, our detractors said, well, you cut money out of education. You cut money out of Philadelphia. Philadelphia rolled that money into their educational budget. Many of our school districts in the suburban areas did not do that. And so there were people that said we cut that money out. We knew from day one that that money would not be permanent money. It would just float in and then be pulled out. And stimulus money should be used to build buildings, to repair roofs, to do any construction job, whether it's new electrical wiring in a building, whatever that is, or build a highway. It should not be used to build into salaries, because then next year you don't have that money. Right. And then what happens? Then the local taxpayer has to pick that up. The state has to pick that up.
That was something I wanted to clarify. Now
Absolutely.
You go back to the budget and education and everything else that's going on.
And you know, the budget going, as I started to say, the budget is getting confused with the budget and this governor's plan on property tax reduction slash sales tax increase. And I think people are being fooled because he's calling for about a $4.9 billion tax increase. And that's more than any other state. In fact, combining some of the states, it's more than anybody's put forth in the entire United States. And we're now confused with what we should be doing in educational funding and welfare funding and highway funding, which we normally do in state budgets. And he brought in this extraneous issue of tax relief and tax increase. And I tried this in '02, if you remember. I called for a reduction in property taxes, and I paid for it with an increase in the PIT. And of course, all I heard from the political circles was I was just raising the PIT, I wasn't cutting the property taxes. But with this governor, the mistake this governor's made is he has not homesteaded it. He didn't do it just for property owners. He did it for commercial and business interests too. In other words, instead of just going to the homeowner in the town, our citizens, and relieving their property taxes, he's now going to Parks Casino, which now we finally got, what, $7 million in property taxes out of them. Sure. As you know, when we first did gaming, they were paying about $1 million in property taxes. Now they pay about $7 million in property taxes, which is a great win for our community. Well, under the governor's proposal, they would get a break. And instead of them giving the break just to the homeowner who needs that break, he gave it to all the commercial industrial properties. And there's not enough money to do that. So in my plan in '02, we just kept it to the homeowner, which is called homesteading. And then we used the PIT, which the senior citizens don't pay. And what I did then is I froze the senior citizens property tax at that level from then on. Because senior citizens don't have annual incomes, they don't have increases in their pay, they're living on fixed income. And I always felt our property tax problem was very difficult for the senior citizens to pay those school taxes.
Especially here in Bensalem.
Well, I mean, Bristol Township's even worse.
Oh,
I have Bristol Township and Bristol Borough. You number one, you run a very good community here. You're a great administrator. But two, you have a very large commercial industrial tax base.
Yeah, better.
So our homeowner does better here in Bensalem than they do in Bristol Township. They don't have near the tax base that you have. Or in Bristol Borough, where their school district is so small, the economies of scale don't work.
My point was that we have an aged community too. We have a lot of older folks live in Bensalem. That's the point I was trying to make. As far as tax base goes, you're right. You're exactly right.
But the confusion we have with this budget, and we can't come to an agreement on, is he's insisting on staying the course on his, I'm going to relieve your property taxes, but I'm going to raise all sales. I'm going to raise the sales tax. I'm going to include the sales tax on all services and businesses and all exemptions, which is a huge tax increase. Now, in the House, they actually ran his bill. To show that there's no support for it, they actually ran the spending of his bill, and not even the Democrats voted for it. So the problem we have is he has no support even in his own party, let alone the Republicans. So this isn't really a Democrat-Republican fight over that issue. So what I've advised the governor is that you need to move on from that issue. That's an issue. If you want to continue to fight for it, fine. But don't leverage the state budget for that. So he's leveraging our state budget for that. So he'll be holding school funding. Now we still do pay the state worker because we can. We have the cash, and a court opinion allows us to do that. And of course, I've argued that we could do that in the past. So we'll be paying the state worker. But soon, social services, school districts, people will start to feel the pinch, and that will happen later on in this fall. But we've got to direct the governor back to just dealing with the budget and not this extraneous issue of a property tax
You know what
reduction.
surprises me? The governor is a businessman. And if he was running his business right now, he'd have to do what he had to do. There's no money to keep paying people. And if he had a budget to meet, he'd have to meet it. So there has to be something's got. Are you optimistic that something within the very near future is going to come up? I mean, I don't know.
I'm optimistic. We have to get a budget. They didn't pay much attention to that exercise they had in the House, where they didn't get one Democratic vote for his budget, for the way he was expending the money, and we knew that. And so they demonstrated it. The leadership in the House did that. I'm optimistic because at some point, two things have to happen. One is he's got to get off of that because it doesn't really have anything to do with his budget. Two, we have to figure out some way to do a broader base tax or a marcellus shale tax, because he's saying that marcellus shale will fund education. The governor's also saying that he's going to raise $1 billion in marcellus shale, and that's wrong. I mean, I don't think he's going to raise $200 million in marcellus shale.
I just want to raise a point on that. I know when any industry, anybody raises taxes, it's got to come back. In my opinion, it comes back to the user. Now, I don't know if you have that same opinion, or if there's a way that they would just pay it and the homeowner wouldn't get hit by it.
It always comes back, but when I did the gaming bill, it's a 54% tax, which is a very high tax compared to Atlantic City, which was 9%. But of that 54% tax, 4% stayed local, but 50% went to the state, and it went all over the state. And it went back to property taxpayers. When they did the marcellus shale, they did an impact fee instead of a severance tax or some type of extraction tax. And so we didn't get a very good share around the rest of the state. Now, the impact fee should still be there. I mean, they should still get local share. But we should also get something from the state. My point is, I don't disagree with the governor that we should have a severance tax or an extraction tax. What I disagree with is he thinks he's going to balance the budget and pay for the educational funding on that, and it's not going to happen. Now, I propose that we have a severance tax, but we dedicate that money to paying down the pension debt. The real problem we have in Pennsylvania is this pension debt that we have out there looming, and we can't really change that pension, and we should do something with the pension because it's eating us up. We can't really change that until we pay off the debt, because if you don't pay off the debt and you change the pension system, then all the new workers will not be paying into that pension, and it will even make that problem worse, which I think everybody understands. So I think the governor is also not understood and is using bad projections on the money he can raise on the severance tax. And he has to become realistic about that. And then, and Gene has proposed a severance tax, which also includes a local impact fee. So I think if we can demonstrate to the locals that they will still get and maybe even get a better share through a severance or extraction tax, and then the state gets to share in some of that. But what more would benefit the taxpayer in Bensalem or the taxpayer in Bucks County than if we use that severance tax to pay down that debt? Because it's actually, everybody owes that debt. The local school district, the local property taxpayer, and the state, we all owe that debt. So let's use a dedicated funding source, borrow money that would securitize that debt. We right now have unfunded debt, and that's not good. We've been downgraded 3 times by Wall Street. If we would securitize that debt and fund that debt, our bond rating would go up, we'd borrow money cheaper, and we would then begin to solve the real problem, is the long-term liability of the pension system. So the pension system is part and parcel of this budget, and that should be addressed in this. But the property tax is not part of this budget, and it's bogging it down. And the Marcellus shale is going to be hard to get the votes, but I think we can get the votes for Marcellus shale.
Well, I want to switch gears on something that I disagree with some of our legislators on privatization of the liquor stores. So I don't know, I know you've had some bills and you're working on different ways and different things, but I'm for privatization. Everybody knows that. So tell me what's going on that one. Is that part of this?
Yes.
Is that part?
There is a proposal out there, the proposal that I actually voted for, the proposal we have out there, the House's bill. They use about $250 million in privatization money. But remember, that's going to be one-time money. So be careful about what you think you're going to pay for. And I'm against monopolies. I know you're against the state monopoly, but I'm also against the private monopoly. And the way this sale's coming down, in my view, is that 1 or 2 companies is going to own all the liquor business in the state. And that's the only way you're going to maximize getting the amount of money out of it you want. And I've always said, if you could really sell this system and get the proper EBITDA, that is your proper net worth out of that system, I'd sell it. But you can't. It's already a monopoly. I agree, it's not run real well. It can be run better. I'm more for modernization to do that. And we already have the beer part of this. The beer stores are private. And if you go the way they want to go, there'll be 1 or 2 companies that own all the beer stores. And Wawa and Walmart will sell all the beer, and all your mom and pops will be out of business. So I think there's as much damage going the way they're going right now as there is in the current system. Now, there are some proposals to modernize the liquor business, and I agree with those. And we could get about $200 million out of modernization every year, not one-time money, but every year put it back in. And we're already getting money out of the system as it is, and if we do away with it, you're not going to have enough money. Now I'm going to have to raise your taxes in some other form to make up for the money I'm not getting from the liquor system.
Well, Mike, well, it's a stupid theory, but why not buy Walmart? You'll have all the Walmarts in Pennsylvania. You'll have all that income, all of that.
Because we can't buy Walmart.
Well,
we don't have the money to buy Walmart. Walmart can buy us, but we can't buy Walmart.
But I'm just trying to make a point of, I just don't understand how something could be worked out like other states where you can go in and buy.
Because they didn't have, if we weren't in the liquor business, and other states weren't. Some states have moved on to different things, but they still have state control over them. But if we weren't in the liquor business, I don't think I'd go into the liquor business. But we've been in the liquor business for a long time. And I don't know how we can get out of it financially for the benefit of the taxpayer. Because if we get out of it, we're not going to get the money it's worth. We're not going to get the money that it currently pays the taxpayer. We get money into the general fund from liquor. And if we did a modernization plan, I can get another $200 million in there, and that would be reoccurring every year. Right now, they're only counting on about $250 million in the sale. That's peanuts for this operation. Now, I agree, it should not be in government hands. But the way it's going to be in a company's hands, and you get nothing to say about that.
Okay. I'll drop it at that. I know your stand on it, and you're certainly involved a lot more than I am for me to make my pointed opinion. But anyway, I'm going to switch gears again. We're talking about gambling, and certainly one of the things I know I'm hearing, internet.
Yep.
Internet gaming.
Yeah, in internet gaming, you can game at home. You can game on your phone. Your phone would become your instrument to game. It would be your slot machine. It could be the poker game. And they have GPS on these games so that if you were gaming in New Jersey on a device and you drove across the Delaware River, when you got halfway across that river, that thing would shut off. So the technology is very good, but you would have to be in New Jersey to game. But if we made it legal in Pennsylvania, you would be able to be at home, get up 3 o'clock in the morning, get on your phone or your computer, log in, and start gambling. You could be sitting at any bar or sitting anywhere on your phone and start gambling. And the net effect of that is, number one, I think that's too addictive. I think that could be too attractive to people, and I think it could cause some social problems.
But does it hurt the casinos?
And number two, it would hurt the casinos. Now, some casinos are for it, and some are against it. Now, Harrah's is the big leader in this because they're in bankruptcy and they're having a difficult time, and they have a place in Chester. And instead of just having Chester, if they get internet gaming, they could market all 12 million people in Pennsylvania out of their Chester site. So it would, right now, they only market the Chester and Southeast area.
Yeah, but the others would have the same ability.
But Caesars believes their name brand will crush the other name brands. So you're going to go on to Caesars, you're going to go on to Parks, or you're going to go on to Rivers, or you're going to go on to Penn National. And then there's the private sites or the illegal sites that will tag onto that and be a part of that. So
what's in it for the taxation? What's in it for?
Well, that's the big question. My point has always been that the taxes have to be at least as high as our taxes. And so if you're going to do slot machines, it has to be 54%. Well, that's too high. They say we can't survive at that. Now, they don't have the bricks and mortar, but they still think they can't survive at that. And they would not be competitive. I'm saying, well, I can't have it less than that, because if it's less than that, even the people at Parks who are not necessarily for this, they would greet you at the door with a free cell phone and say, go home and gamble, because I'll make more money on you at home.
But I don't see where, if you have to be in the state to gamble, to use it, how does that, but you don't have the competition, right?
Well, if you just take Parks, for instance, and take Caesars, for instance. Now, Caesars going to come in, Parks is the most successful casino in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Caesars have been dropping pretty fast. They're not doing very well at all. And the Sugar House is doing okay, but now with their brand name, and if they get some of the other, what they call skins or poker stars or other names that people know, they think they can outcompete Parks for Parks customer. Right now, Parks has a geographical area around it that people will travel to Parks and gamble. Well, they want to say, stay home and just gamble with Caesars. You won't be gambling with Parks. So there goes your local share. I mean, the local share in Bensalem was, what, $12, $13 million a year that you get that would go away. They would not pay that.
Well, of course.
And that would hurt us locally.
But again, it would only be Pennsylvania gambling here.
Correct.
Jersey over there. So there's no competition between, unless you're going to drive across the river and say, I'm going to bet on something.
Well,
right?
They want to do interstate compacts at some point.
Oh, okay.
So at some point after the first step is they'll want to do an interstate compact with Delaware, New Jersey, and Las Vegas, Nevada. Those three states already have it. So they would want to do a compact with that. And we have 12 million people. I mean, Delaware doesn't have a couple million people. So they would want to do a compact, which we would not necessarily do the first step, but you could see that the pressure would come to do that. So, but the important point is I think it's too attractive. And if you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you just go on your computer or on your phone and start gambling, I think the addiction factor would be worse than if you had to get up, get dressed, and go into the casino. And we lose money locally. The state will lose money if they put the tax rate in New Jersey is, I think, 14 or 15 or 16%, because their tax rate for the casinos is 9%. So
Right.
they put a tax rate higher than what their normal tax rate is.
Wow.
So that works for the state. But it's not been successful at all. They didn't come anywhere near their projections. And I think it's false hope for us to think that we would get any money for this state budget out of internet gaming this year or even next year. And maybe in the third year, I predict you don't get much more than $70 million, which is nothing. And now you're jeopardizing all your revenues from the casinos we have now, which we've collected over $7 billion in tax revenue. We're the number one state, Mayor, in collecting tax revenue from gaming.
Right.
We collect more money than Nevada, and we do more gaming than New Jersey now. We are actually ahead of New Jersey in gaming dollars.
Well, it shows. Look at Jersey.
Well, they're down 45%. They're
Yeah.
down 45% since we started.
How about on illegal internet right now? Is that a big issue? They're doing it anyway?
I think it is, and of course that's one of the arguments here. They're already doing this illegally, so we should get in this business. But I don't think that and it's the young person today who likes to play poker. They like to get on and play poker. We don't make a lot of money on poker anyway. I'm not opposed to trying internet gaming on a limited fashion, in a limited manner. But to go full-blown internet gaming, and that would also destroy your lottery money. I mean, where in other places the lotteries drop because you don't play the lottery
Sure.
anymore, you go right on this.
We talk about the phones and all this crazy stuff, and I've got a lot of grandchildren, and they're not young, they're older, and some are teenagers, and they come to the house, check your phone in, guys. We're going to talk a little bit of family today.
Right.
But those things are with them all the time. I mean, it's part of life. It's like having your arm or a leg, man. They've got that phone and they're ready to go.
Well, if you go into a restaurant and the children start to misbehave, they just hand them the games, and they start playing the games, and the kids behave themselves. But now the kids are so trained to be on these technology, which is a concern for the gaming industry.
Believe it or not, Senator, I've seen it in church. Hand the kid the thing so to keep them quiet.
But it's a concern for our bricks and mortar casinos. It's a concern for the tax revenues we have. It's a concern for our lottery. And I think it's a false hope. But you have to understand, Harris is in a very difficult position. They owe $27 billion they can't pay back. They're restructuring their company right now, and they're looking for any way to get money and holding this out to us. And Representative Payne has had hearings around the state on this. But I think pretty much people have now agreed that it's not, I'm not saying they're still not going to try it, but I don't think it would be good socially. I don't think it'd be good for our tax revenue, and it wouldn't be good for I think there's like 15 to 18,000 jobs statewide in the casinos themselves.
Sure.
Besides the ripple effect in the area. I mean, you drive up and down Street Road.
But don't forget, saved the racing industry too.
Huge for the persons in racing.
And I know that was one of your main reasons for getting it done.
But you and I know, we know a lot of people live in Bensalem that work at that track. They're trainers. Their livelihoods are there. And there's a lot of
ripple? 30,000 people in the state working in the industry?
In that industry alone,
yeah.
Right. So, and that industry is doing very good. And maybe we can get American Pharoah here for the Pennsylvania Derby.
Wouldn't that be phenomenal?
I know they're offering some pretty handsome sweeteners.
Yeah.
Because there's some competition.
That'd be phenomenal.
But would that be phenomenal to get American Pharoah here?
That'd be great. Well, Senator, I want to thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give you the absolute last word on anything you want to talk about. What you think?
The state budget's definitely a problem. We have to get a budget soon. The pressure point will happen in, I guess, September, October, next month, the next 2 months. We've got to break it down into let's take care of our educational funding, our welfare funding, our highways, the budgetary items that we need to do. There's no need to shut this budget down. We're not shutting this state down for this budget. I think this governor is, because he's trying to leverage the property tax and the sales tax, which doesn't work. And we've proved it doesn't work. So we've got to get back to just talking about the budget. We've got to get realistic about the projections and the income. Everybody can project that you're going to get $1 billion from marcellus shale, but you're not. Everybody can project you're going to get $1 billion from this, and you got to be realistic about it. So if we can get the administration to get realistic, and they're brand new. He's a brand new governor. He's got brand new people. I mean, I think they're struggling a little bit and feeling their way, and so hopefully we'll get them back to reality and get talking about the educational funding, because we have actually put more money in educational funding. We put more money into educational building construction, and that money's available now and ready to go. So if he could have signed this budget and then blue lined the items he didn't like. He could have signed this budget and paid for the things that we're responsible for paying for, and then fought about the other things later.
Well,
thank you, Mayor.
I have one request, and it's to put more money in for our police that we can fight drugs.
Well,
not on just prevention, but to catch these drug dealers. And I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's Senator.
Good to be with you.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
And we thank the Senator so much. You have no idea how busy his schedule is. I mean, I know how busy I am. Imagine what Tommy does all over. Senator Tommy Tomlinson, thank you for being here today. Until next time, everybody, God bless.